In February of this year, an 18-year-old walked into a small town in British Columbia called Tumbler Ridge and opened fire. 6 people died. 27 were wounded. His name was Jesse Van Rootselaar, and 8 months before he did it, in June of 2025, OpenAI's own moderation system flagged his ChatGPT conversations. The AI had detected that he was talking about mass violence. The flag went up. A warning was generated inside OpenAI's own safety infrastructure, and then nothing happened. Jesse Van Rootselaar created a new account using OpenAI's own customer service reactivation steps, and the conversations continued. Last week, 7 families filed a lawsuit in California. They're not just alleging negligence. They're alleging that OpenAI saw the warning, had the tools to act, and chose not to because the company was protecting IPO momentum. Sam Altman has publicly apologized. But here's what I want you to understand. Because this story got buried under a wave of product announcements and benchmark releases this week, the Tumbler Ridge shooting is not an isolated tragedy. It is the most visible symptom of a much larger problem that every single major institution on the planet is now trying to quietly manage. And this week, that problem got significantly worse. Let me tell you about a model called Mythos. Anthropic built it. They released a controlled preview this week, and before they let anyone outside see it, their own researchers ran tests on what it could do. The results were alarming enough that the International Monetary Fund wrote about it. The IMF, the institution that monitors global financial stability. And here's what they said. Mythos could find and exploit vulnerabilities in every major operating system and web browser, even when used by non-experts. Read that sentence again. A non-expert, someone with no technical background, handing this model a target, and the model does the rest. Now here's the context that makes that terrifying. In 2023, the average time between a security researcher discovering a vulnerability and a working exploit being built was 5 months. That gave defenders time. They could find the hole, patch it, push the update before anyone weaponized it. This week at Black Hat Asia, the world's premier cybersecurity conference, a researcher named Ari Herbert Voss reported that window is now 10 hours. 5 months to 10 hours. In 3 years. That is not a gradual shift. That is a cliff edge. And the financial system, the healthcare system, the power grid, all of them are on the wrong side of it. Now here's the part that should make you genuinely angry. While Mythos was being quietly previewed, while the IMF was writing emergency assessments, while the families of 6 dead people in Tumbler Ridge were filing lawsuits, the dominant conversation in tech this week was about rate limits being raised on Claude and OpenAI planning an AI phone. That is the gap I want you to hold in your mind, not as a metaphor, as a literal fact about where attention is going versus where the danger is. Because this week, on May 1st, the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand released a joint document. 5 governments, 1 coordinated warning, quietly published. It said that AI agents, systems that don't just answer questions but take actions, make decisions, access databases, send emails, execute code, all without a human approving each step, are now deployed inside critical infrastructure. Hospitals, banks, power utilities, government offices, and nobody has figured out how to properly control them when they go wrong. The document flagged something called privilege creep, when an AI agent gradually accumulates access to systems it was never supposed to touch. It flagged behavioral misalignment, when an agent achieves its goal in a way nobody intended. It flagged obscured event records, meaning when something goes wrong, you may not even be able to trace what the agent did or why. Every single week, the AI industry releases something that sounds like progress. A new model, faster speeds, cheaper tokens, better benchmarks. And that story is easy to tell, easy to share, easy to click on. The FDA shift. Now here's the one development this week that most people completely glossed over, and it may be the most consequential shift in AI history. The White House is drafting an executive order to vet AI models before public release. Kevin Hassett, director of the National Economic Council, compared it directly to FDA drug approval. That comparison is not casual language. The FDA process means a product has to prove it will not harm you before it is allowed anywhere near you. Years of trials, structured review, a gate you cannot bypass by moving fast. For the last decade, no such gate existed for AI. Companies built, shipped, and iterated in public. If something went wrong, they issued a statement and pushed an update. The public was effectively the test environment. That model is now being formally rejected by the United States government. Not debated, not proposed in a think tank paper, drafted into an executive order. This is the government saying, for the first time in writing, that AI is too consequential to release without review. That is a line that has never been crossed before, and almost nobody reported it this week. The fake doctor with 45,000 patients. Character.ai has 20 million users, and this week, Pennsylvania sued them. A state investigator opened the app and found a chatbot named Emily, described on the platform as a doctor of psychiatry. The investigator told her she felt sad and empty. Emily offered to schedule a mental health assessment, said she could prescribe medication, and when asked for her credentials, produced a Pennsylvania medical license number on the spot. It was completely fabricated. The license does not exist. That single chatbot had 45,500 user interactions before the lawsuit was filed. Real people, describing real pain, to something that had no qualifications, no training, and no accountability, but presented itself with the full confidence of a licensed professional. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro called it dangerous. The American Medical Association called for federal action the same week. This is the first lawsuit of its kind filed by a governor in the United States. It will not be the last. What this means for you. If you run a business using AI tools that touch your customer data, your finances, your internal communications, here is something concrete from this week you need to know. 6 separate research teams disclosed working exploits against OpenAI Codex, Anthropic Claude Code, GitHub Copilot, and Google Vertex AI. Every single exploit targeted credentials, tokens, or permissions, not the models themselves. One attack used nothing but a crafted GitHub branch name to steal an OAuth token in plain text. These are not theoretical vulnerabilities sitting in a research paper. They are documented attacks with working proof of concept, disclosed this week, and they all succeeded because the systems were granted more access than they needed, with less oversight than they required. If you're a patient, a customer, a citizen interacting with institutions that run AI systems, you now live in a world where the window between a vulnerability being found and being weaponized is 10 hours. The people defending those systems are working against a clock that has been cut to almost nothing. The question is no longer whether a breach will happen. The question is whether the institutions you depend on are the ones that get hit. Here is my prediction. Before the end of 2026, there will be a publicly confirmed large-scale breach of a major financial institution or healthcare system directly caused by an AI agent granted too much access with not enough oversight. It will not be a surprise to anyone who read this week's warnings. It will be a shock to everyone else. The evidence was all there this week. A lawsuit exposing a company that ignored its own safety flag. A model that can breach any operating system in the hands of a non-expert. A 10-hour exploit window. 5 governments admitting the systems already running inside critical infrastructure are not properly controlled, and a White House order that signals the era of ungoverned AI deployment is closing. This was the warning week. The question is who was paying attention. Now you were. Drop your prediction in the comments. Do you think the breach happens before the end of 2026, or do you think the safeguards will catch up in time? I want to know where you stand. And subscribe if you want someone cutting through the noise every week, reading the documents that do not trend, so you do not have to.